2023 felt like such a weird year for games. Like, we had some absolute banger releases with shit like Final Fantasy 16, Tears of the Kingdom, or Alan Wake 2, but at the same time, there were some actual shit releases, like the Gollum game, the day before, or the new Call of Duty Shoot 'em Man. Now, while I didn't play everything that came out this year, I did play quite a few games, and I'd like to rant a little bit about some of my favorites. Disclaimer, some of these games didn't come out in 2023, but fuck you, it's my video. While playing through Dave the Diver, I came to the realization that it's basically the TikTok equivalent of video games. Now, what I mean with that is that both do an excellent job of keeping your attention by constantly feeding you new content. At first, you're just venturing into the blue hole, catching fish, and serving customers. But before you can get bored of that loop, the game throws something new at you. You've got mini games like Shark Dentist, Seahorse Racing, or boss fights against shit like a hermit crab with a truck for a shell, or even fights against other chefs where you're basically playing Cooking Mama. Along with that, you've still got a story to push you in the right direction and keep you engaged, so for a game all about catching fish and cooking them, Dave the Diver does so much more. For me, the best part of Final Fantasy VI would hands down be the story. The shift away from the typical fantasy setting to something more akin to steampunk is a breath of fresh air. Characters also have individual personalities, backgrounds, and story arcs, creating a diverse and memorable cast. Not only that, but FF6 has an amazing villain as well. At first I thought Kefka was a joke, because he's a clown, but his sense of humor is more like the Harlequins from 40k. As well, he isn't some age-old threat like a demon lord, he's just a regular dude who wants the world to burn, which arguably makes him scarier. All of this combined with another astounding score by Nobuo Uematsu creates one of the best Final Fantasies and arguably one of the best stories of all time. Now, while I loved Final Fantasy VI for its gripping story and amazing cast of characters, I liked Chrono Trigger instead for its gameplay. I always love when turn-based games take the typical formula and modify it in some way. In Chrono Trigger, rather than every fight looking like a chessboard, positions change from fight to fight, so depending on the situation, it might be better to use AoE on a clump of enemies, or if they're lined up, a linear ability might be better. This results in a much more engaging combat loop as fights tend to feel more varied. It also does my favorite thing in JRPGs, and that's party/character interaction. Instead of just throwing in the strongest members, you can build a comp around characters that synergize with each other. Personally, I used Chrono, Frog, and Isla, as I really like their multi-heal Slurp Kiss, and their Trio Tech 3D attack. Even though Chrono Trigger is older than me, sorry if that makes you feel old, it's remarkable just how well it holds up nearly 3 decades later, even when compared to modern JRPG titles.
Once something's alive, it doesn't die easy. 621. It's time for work.
One thing that always pisses me off in FromSoft Souls-likes, or Souls-likes in general, is that too often I'll find a cool weapon and I won't have enough of X stat to use it, like strength or dex, and then I just completely forget about the weapon. However, this isn't a problem in Armored Core, as changing your build is one of the main aspects of the game. In between missions, you can, buy numerous parts to customize your build with, and if you happen to stumble upon a piece you can't afford, worrying not is selling parts nets you back about just as much as you paid for it. Another great feature is that during missions, you can still change your build. If you happen to die, then before loading at a checkpoint, you can change up your loadout if you want. Personally, there are plenty of times where my normal build just wasn't cutting it, and being able to experiment depending on the situation was not only fun, but saved me from countless deaths.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Despite how much fun I've been having playing through the Resident Evil remakes, I'm still not really a fan of horror games. So something like RE4 was much more my style. One thing I really liked was how despite playing Leon again, it feels very different from his first day as a rookie cop. You know, in RE2, Leon isn't really well prepared or equipped for the T-Virus outbreak. It takes a bit for him to steady his aim, he's only got a couple of pouches to hold equipment, and if a zombie gets a hold of him, he damn well better have a knife or a flashbang. Meanwhile, in RE4, Leon is much more accurate, he has a whole suitcase for equipment, and now he can roundhouse kick or suplex people. The best part though, would just have to be all the over-the-top action stuff. I don't know if I'm supposed to take this shit seriously, but it just kills me. Whether it's Leon parrying a fucking chainsaw with a knife, doing backflips for no reason, or all his stupid one-liners, I loved every moment of RE4. Well, except for one part.
Ashley!
There's just something about this game that scratches this primal urge I have deep in my goopy goblin gamer brain. And if I wasn't dumb as shit, I could probably find all the reasons that it does. But it's mainly the combat. It's fast, fluid, exhilarating, and above all else, stylish. Paired with a killer soundtrack, even when I don't know what I'm doing, it still looks and feels cool to do. So despite being dog shit at it, it's still fun to play. And at the end of the day, isn't that what matters most?
You remember our venerable house, opulent and imperial. It is a festering abomination. I beg you, return home, claim your birthright, and deliver our family from the ravenous, clutching shadows of the darkest dungeon.
If you're a masochistic piece of shit like me, and you haven't played Darkest Dungeon, you're honestly missing out. But even if it's not your thing, I still think it's worth a try, because even though I love it now, that wasn't always the case. For a while, Darkest Dungeon made me want to punch a hole in my drywall more times than I can count. But I didn't give up. My first playthrough involved a lot of dying, but the more I played, the more I improved. And while death's door still loomed, now, I wasn't afraid of it. I welcomed the challenge as I became quite good at dealing with it.
Can you hear me? Geppetto's puppet. We need your help.
At first I wasn't sure, but I'd be lying if I said Liza P wasn't a damn good game. Now, despite being a Souls-like, Liza P feels much closer to Sekiro with its focus on perfect guarding. You can still dodge and block attacks, but perfect guarding is just better in every way. The best part of the game, though, would have to be the weapons. Non-boss weapons are made up of two parts, a blade and a handle. Blades do specific types of damage, like pierce or slashing, and the handles have certain stat scaling and determine the moveset of the weapon, which allows for a lot of fun experimentation. For example, say I found the stagger and I like it, but the range is a little lacking. Why not just slap it on a spear handle to reach enemies further away? On top of all this, shit gets even more interesting when you take into account the fable arts that each blade and handle have. In my opinion, this is the best Souls-like not made by FromSoft, and I honestly can't wait to see what NeoWiz does next. Honestly, if you ask me why I love Persona 5 so much, I don't think I could give you an answer aside from the music. Even when I wasn't playing, I couldn't get enough of the soundtrack. Whatever it was that Lynn was doing in the studio must have involved a lot of heat, because this shit is fire. However, I do want to make it known that Persona 5 Royale is also a good game, and not just something to do while you're jamming out to the soundtrack. I just couldn't tell you what I liked about it. Again, it's not because it's a bad game, my brain is just fried after a casual 90-hour playthrough. That said, I can't wait to inflict the same levels of amnesia on myself with Persona 3 Reloaded. This video would definitely be too long if I talked about all these games, but just know that I would highly recommend all of these as well. What else could it have fucking been? No other game came even close to how insane Baldur's Gate 3 was this year. The sheer amount of options you have as a player is just crazy. Just when it comes to talking to people alone, there's so many different outcomes, with many having a lasting effect on the rest of the game. It's also crazy how much replayability this game has. Simply picking a different race, class, or difficulty changes the game in so many ways. Like, recently I've been streaming my second playthrough, and while I'm doing another Kind Boy Never Toxic run, it feels nothing like my first time playing. Arguably though, dialogue is pretty limited when you compare it to how insane combat is. There's just so many ways to cheese the game. You've got everyone's favorite Baromancy, the Owlbear from the top rope, or my personal favorite Blood Money, which can let you just one-shot endgame bosses. The best part about all that though, is that it's designed this way. You're meant to be able to break the game if you choose to, and you're rewarded for playing smart and think creatively. And to me, that is what gaming should be about. Hey, if you made it this far, I just wanted to say thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to let me know if you agree or disagree with my top 10, or if you have any feedback on the video as a whole. It's my first time doing shit like this, so sorry if it sucks ass. Aside from that, I've got some more videos in the works, so hopefully you can look forward to that. And if the wait is too long, then I stream pretty often at twitch.tv/KleptoKraken. Until then though, take care, and I'll see you next time, mateys.